Hello Internet, Taliesin here, and welcome to another episode of the Weekly Reset, Taliesin and Evertel's wondrous wisdom show. In a week where, of course, there is only one thing to talk about, and that is the first week of alpha for World of Warcraft Midnight. The last few days have seen such a huge deluge of information, discoveries, reveals, data mining, and testing that you probably found it quite hard to keep up. I know I have. So in this episode, rather than try to explain every tiny little thing, we're going to present you with what we consider to be the most important and interesting parts of the alpha as we've experienced it, tell you about those things, and look at the community reaction too. So we're going to be touching on housing, the story and quests, Silvermoon, the new UI and add-on-like features embedded in the UI, which has already seen the demise of the most useful add-on in the history of WoW. We're going to be talking dungeons and delves and big, massive, spoilery dungeon and raid bosses, lumber, models and transmog changes, and class changes. We have so much to get through before the next alpha build hits and completely dicks up everything in this video, and also to remind you of the handy spoiler warning system that we employ in these videos, and which is probably going to be quite important in the next few months, because we have absolutely no desire to spoil Midnight for you, unless you want us to. So you can watch our videos confident that we'll always give you an appropriate warning, clearly marked and skippable on the timeline, which you can easily avoid. And here's how it works. We use our Bluebot Spoilerbot for things which are kind of spoilery, but aren't really secret. So they're out in the open on the alpha. Blizz want us to see them and test them. Standard questing storylines without big reveals are kind of the most common example of this warning. The one you really want to watch out for, though, is the REDBOT Spoilerbot, which is for data mined stuff not otherwise visible in the alpha. Things like data mined character models and voice lines. But we also use it for things which are technically Bluebot spoilers, but which we consider to be extra spoilery. So for example, this week, the dungeon journal entries for certain raids and dungeons, which would appear to give away some pretty major plot beats. Like I say, we have made these spoiler bots as easy to avoid as we can, so relax. And before we get into any really meaty stuff, let's start with Evie's Alpha Rundown.
Welcome to Evie's Alpha Rundown. Let's run down some things I found in the alpha this week that I thought were particularly great. The theater in Alliance Neighborhood Founders Point, which features the first instance I'm aware of in WoW of curtain physics. I'm just gonna let you watch this for a minute because it's weird how surprising this curtain is to longtime WoW players. Is that a little bit tragic when you think about it? Probably yes, but who cares? Look at it swish! The best news is that these curtains are apparently also decor items, so you'll be able to collect them, hang them in your home, and then spend hours swishing in and out of them and no one even needs to know. Nelthius Shade Stone in Silvermoon has a selection of new headstones for you to choose from when you die in delves, allowing you a bit of extra self-expression in your final moments. I especially like the Bran hat on a stick, which might even be interesting enough to distract your friends and guildies from the fact that you died in a tier 3 delve when they find it. And actually, we are going to need another one of those headstones because Valor Stones are dead in Midnight. RIP Valor Stones. Devs had said that they are looking at smoothing out gear progression, and we don't know exactly what that means right now, but it definitely means no Valor Stones. Rest in piss, Valor Stones. There is, of course, always the chance that the gear upgrade system, which generally works very well right now, sees Valor Stones replaced by something even worse or more annoying, which wouldn't even be that hard since the only thing really wrong with them is the piddly cap and lack of account-wide transfer. Whatever. Let's enjoy the moment while it lasts. We have some transmog news. Although the new transmog systems and UI are not yet implemented on the alpha, we have had reports that there is a change in the way players can collect armor set recolors, whereby collecting one level of a set will automatically unlock all the color variants of the corresponding sets of lower quality. So collect a mythic tier set and you'll also collect the heroic, normal, and LFR variants too. This is also supposed to work retroactively too, so obviously this is a huge, massive win with no downsides. Oh, wait, you want to hear a downside? Well, there aren't any. Why do you assume there would be a downside? Why do you assume something good can't happen without a monkey paw curling one out on us somewhere? That is so bleak. Obviously, this is just a good change to celebrate. And completely unrelated, but upgrading gear will now no longer allow you to collect higher level appearances. So, for example, picking up a heroic helm and fully maxing it out with crests, but not Valor Stones, rest in shit Valor Stones, won't give you the mythic appearance in Midnight like it does in the War Within. So yeah, I lied about the monkey paw, but I was trying to avoid confrontation. Oh, and look, I'm future Evie from the future, because as we were editing this, the monkey paw curled a complete 360, and Blizz have now announced that gear will take on the higher track appearance after all once you upgrade it to its maximum level, which will be easier to do in Midnight, by the way, since each gear track now has only one type of crest that you need to fully upgrade it. So, for example, you won't get hard stuck with a mostly upgraded heroic track piece just because you don't do any content that awards you gilded crests. That must have been that smoother gear progression they were talking about. I was talking about. That's Alpha fam, always changing. Thank goodness we have this time machine. And speaking of transmog, how about tier sets? Wowhead have now data mined every single class set from the opening tier of Midnight, and as usual, there are winners, there are losers, and then there are hunters. One of our favorite videos to make is the proper tier set ranking video, but allow me to summarize each for you now quickly. Sauron scrubs up all right. Fell in the forge and got horny. Podcaster. Strangely cool pearlescence FX, but also weirdest f***ing toes I've ever seen. Forgot to empty my orbs. Ghost of Donnie Darko Bunny. Literally the most perfect set you could make for this expansion. Pretty sure I just bought this one on the cash shop. Seriously, I'm not joking, look at these toes. Hangman's spiky tits. Did you know shamans like elemental stuff? War rock. Least subtle ivory smuggler. Still can't stop thinking about those toes. And f***ing hunter. As always, the description of this video is absolutely packed with Wowhead articles covering this and plenty else we talk about today for you to peruse at your leisure.
And so, to the big topics this week, which are the alpha launch and first impressions, the death of weak auras, and Blizzard's scorched earth add-on policy from the very start of Midnight, backfiring, and player housing, and all the cool new stuff we've learned about this in the first real look at it. So, to get us started, here are some of my initial thoughts on this very first alpha. 1. Silvermoon City. It's kind of like the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. From the very moment that the intro scenario finishes, and we'll talk more about that in the Bluebot section, and places you at the far end of the long bridge that now connects the Isle of Keldanas and the Sunwell with the revamped hub, the visual impact of the new capital is striking. Now, obviously we can fly in the new Silvermoon, but if you think that I didn't RP walk that first entrance into the city, frankly, you don't know me very well. And I'm glad I did, even though, well, it took quite a long time. That's a very long bridge, you know? And whereas the vibes and the feel of the city is everything you might have expected, the layout is surprisingly unfamiliar. The main cross-faction hub and all the amenities like the Catalyst, the inn, auction house, bank and whatnot are completely newly built on top of where the Great Scar is in TBC Silvermoon, as is everything in that huge open area to the west of the Scar in TBC. So the majority of this city is basically completely new and also massive feeling with huge marble walls and a surprisingly vertical and three-dimensional design, which initially left me a little bit alienated in just how different it felt to what I'm used to from Silvermoon. Worth noting though that this was only on my Alliance character, and the Alliance don't get full run of Silvermoon. The eastern part of the city has red banners and red trees and guards that will see red if your Alliance ass spends more than a few seconds hanging out, as it were. When I came back on a Horde character, that whole eastern part of Silvermoon is way more familiar feeling, which makes sense as it is the part of the city that exists in TBC now, and so has lots of recognizable paths and layouts and landmarks. So too are the annoying gates with walls in the middle that you have to walk around as you go through, all replaced by big, beautiful, open archways. Overall, it's quite a nice way of handling the cross-factionization of Silvermoon, really. All the new stuff is the bits that the Alliance get to enter, but the old stuff, the proper old-school Silvermoon, that is Horde only, just like it always was. Nothing's changed. And actually, Hordies don't even have to spend any time with the Alliance at all if they don't want to, since that Horde-only side has its own inn, its own bank, auction house, even a creation catalyst. Pretty much everything you'll need to keep Silvermoon red. Oh, and another thing which is striking about Silvermoon, and this whole zone actually, and it's only a little thing, but I did notice it, like, everyone here is so hot. I mean, they're blood elves, obviously, but the last 3 expansion hubs have been Oribos, which was mostly comprised of people with no real body or face, Valdracum, which is a bunch of scaly boys, Dornagor, which is a bunch of stone dwarves, and obviously they are all super hot in their own way, no argument at all, but the blood elves are hot in a much more specific way, and it's just very noticeable to me, and I like it, that's all. And if I was a tiny bit surprised with how different the city felt, that feeling was completely changed when I set foot in Eversong Woods for the first time, which has unmistakably benefited from a serious glow-up in the graphical department, but which has also completely retained those exquisite TBC vibes. I mean, look how square these bushes still are. Turns out that wasn't blocky 2006 graphics. Blood Elves just really love square topiary. Questing around here was everything I hoped it would be in terms of atmosphere and nostalgia, and that was even without the music, which won't come until much later and which will elevate those feels tenfold. It's the exact start I wanted to this expansion. It literally ticks every box. I love it. I love that glowy void skybox too, which, by the way, is visible from Stranglethorn at the furthest southerly point of the Eastern Kingdoms, and which I suspect will change at some point during the expansion, maybe even the first patch, when the story moves forward, because it is, like, very story specific. I love that the zone is now a proper part of the old world. The old portal to the TBC era Eversong is still there, but you can now fly seamlessly in and out of the new zones at will, as expected. You can even fly over Stratholme for the first time to get there too. It's still on fire, it's been over 20 years now. You still can't see anything through the flames, but like Eversong, it actually now exists in the world for the first time properly, which feels pretty good. I love that Caldanas is completely open and explorable and is totally recognizable to any TBC player. And Caldanas is, of course, where the intro scenario happens. So let's put up a little Bluebot spoiler and talk about that. Now, as you probably know, the intro scenario begins at the point that the Midnight cinematic ends, with the Army of Light, which includes us, being summoned to protect the Sunwell from the Void invasion. We team up with Lorthamar and Liadrin, but also the other characters who have come too, like Anduin and Faerun. Lothraxion is spotted, and that makes me very happy. I'm so glad he's here and on our side, and absolutely nothing is going to spoil that dream scenario. Leroy Jenkins is here, which I guess is one of those characters Maria Hamilton was talking about in our fireside chat, who she said might be surprised to have been summoned, as well as a whole host of familiar old school names alongside them. Of course, the new Swedish backpacker Arator is also here, and look, I'm just going to say it, Turalyon is a total dick to him, and actually to everyone, but especially to him. All Turalyon cares about is protecting the Sunwell, kind of understandably, but that means he doesn't really care about, say, the safety of fleeing Silvermoon civilians, and he gets very annoyed when Arator constantly nopes out of his orders to go and protect those fleeing citizens. That's not very good dad of you, Turalyon. You're supposed to be the good dad, Turalyon. And then later in Silvermoon, Turalyon and his Army of Light guys are basically total dicks to their Blood Elf hosts, acting as if they own the place, demanding all of the city's resources, and, okay, fair enough in a way, because their job of protecting the Sunwell is obviously extremely immediate and important to the ultimate safety of everyone, but the expectation they have of everyone being incredibly thankful to them the whole time is going to rub most players up the wrong way, I think. It rubbed me up the wrong way. Blizz does go hard with the tension between these two groups from the very start, and it's kind of obvious who we're supposed to side with. Oh, I tell you what, it would be great if we were able to get our own back on some of those light guy assholes at some point, wouldn't it, eh? Ultimately, the invasion is thwarted, with the Sunwell firing a beam of energy up into the Voidstorm portal to keep it at bay. But Liadrin and the other Blood Knights are very surprised and more than a little bit concerned at just how aggressively the Sunwell behaved during the ritual to make that happen. I wonder where that story's going to go. And that is the end of the Bluebot section. Well done, fam, you made it. And apart from all the questing, I was able to test the 2 dungeons this week, Murder Row and Windrunner's Spire. Murder Row has a kind of Court of Stars light mechanic where you're going around talking to informants around the city, but there is no real puzzle solving element involved, you'll probably be pleased to learn. There's this really weird bit where you all work as waitstaff for a party. My particular job was to mop up vomit from the floor, which made me feel very heroic, and I think I like it. I think so. The dungeon really takes off though when you get to the upper levels and it all goes green and legiony. That final third is really where the dungeon starts for me. And Windrunner's Spire is notable obviously for its lore tour with Lirath, the Windrunner brother, who is a bard and who plays little emotive flourishes on his harp as he tells his tales. Because he's a bard though, just saying. If you were hoping for any big lore revelations in this dungeon, then you're going to be disappointed. If you were hoping for a snappy dungeon with a choice of routes and encounter order, you're probably going to be really happy, honestly. I also tested the available delves, and I have much more mixed feelings on them. The first one I tried was the Dark Way, and I was very excited when I went to the portal for this and was told that I'd be heading to Suramar, because I love Suramar. Suramar rocks, and this delve is, I mean, it's the Archway, as in, it's literally the Archway, and that was really fun at first, until it became clear that this dungeon map hadn't really yet been filled with enough delvey stuff, and as a result, there were huge swathes of it that were just completely empty and took me ages to walk through. A little bit boring, honestly, but probably just alpha things, who cares? Nice change of pace visually, and Valera, our new companion, well, she's definitely very different from Bran, and by that I mean she's taller, obviously, and it feels like she doesn't really have any voice lines in there yet. And so just a little bit of feedback here. I think the more they can add where she's basically being very mean to me, the more I think I'm going to enjoy delves in general. And I can't really explain it any more than that, sorry. The next delve I tried was Collegiate Calamity, which starts off great in a mage's cool library, but quickly moves into Silvermoon's streets to fight off a bunch of light bloom stuff running amok. And it's obviously very unusual and cool to have an open city setting for a delve, but there was also a little part of me that was like, I just ran the literal Archway for my first new delve. Now I'm running through Silvermoon for the second. Every delve I've tried so far is a map that I've already seen somewhere else. And like, those two maps are so not designed to be delves initially. There's not even a treasure room at the end of either of them. The end delve loot just appears where we are after killing the boss. And I know that's only a little thing, obviously, just doesn't help that niggling feeling, you know? That was slightly underwhelming for me, and I was really excited about delves at first. Other things I got to muck around with, the new flying mechanic, which does away with vigor and puts all your abilities on charged cooldowns, which I hated the idea of because I am a skywriting purist, ask anyone. But honestly, it feels no different at all. Like, you just don't notice it being a change, which makes me feel a little bit silly about how against it I was, honestly. Oh, and of course, I also had a look through the dungeon journal, and here be the big spoilers, okay? Big juicy REDBOT spoilers, because do you know who is a dungeon boss in Midnight? Only your boy Lathraxion. Our big beautiful lighty boy is the final boss of Nexus Point Zenas. And I know what you're thinking. You're all thinking, aha, I knew it. He was the Denathrius spy all along, and now he's gone bad. And that doesn't seem to be the case from the descriptions in the dungeon journal. And I gotta be honest, I really hope it's one of those ones where we beat a little bit of sense into him rather than have to kill anyone, because I love Lathraxion. Lathraxion's my guy. Looking into the raids though, things get even juicier. The opening Voidspire raid features a council fight against some of those dickhead Vanguard of the Light arseholes that were giving Lorthamar shit earlier, and like, good. But the final encounter of this 6 boss instance is Alleria Windrunner, all voidy and kind of fallen looking, and again, I don't know if this is going to be one of those hit them until they feel better kind of fights. And actually, I will say that reading through the abilities, it does seem like the players are still referred to as her allies. It's just she's out of control and focused on fighting back the void at all costs. And one of the costs is us. So there is hope she's going to make it out of here okay, but I am worried because look at how angry she looks. I don't feel safe when she looks at me like that. But all of those spoilers pale in comparison to the March on Keldanas, the third and climactic raid of the first season of Midnight. The raid which Blizzard so far have been reluctant to tell us anything about story-wise, referring to it as shrouded in mystery. Well, not on the alpha, it's not, because we can see now who the final boss of that raid is in the climactic Midnight Fools fight. And I know many of you straight up will be relieved to know it's not Xalatath. They are not Gul'daning her yet. I mean, I say that, maybe we just kill her in a quest in the Void Spire, who knows? No, the final boss of the March of Keldanas is Lura, the Voidy Naru, who is also the final boss of the Seat of the Triumvirate dungeon, which also, by the way, is in the rotation for Mythic Plus in Season 1 of Midnight, so we're going to be fighting this Naru twice, in 2 different instances. And that's interesting, isn't it? Although it's not earth-shattering. No, the interesting, really spoilery part is in the fight description, because, you know, it mentions the Sunwell right at the very beginning, but in all of the ability descriptions, it doesn't talk about the Sunwell. Instead, it talks about the Dark Well. And, you know, I feel like that maybe tells us something about what's going to happen. Before we get on to the add-on and UI drama, I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about my experience of player housing quickly, because I had such a great time exploring both the Alliance and Horde neighborhoods this week. So much so, I'm actually going to make 2 separate in-depth videos on them after I've finished making this episode, but I want to tell you here just how glorious they are. When I first set foot in Founders Point, I legitimately almost cried. For those of us who kind of assumed WoW would never get a feature like this, it feels monumental to suddenly be in a real housing zone. Like, it's seismic and significant feeling, you know? Both zones have a little town centre, which, despite what I assumed in promo footage, is not player housing. This is where the locals live, and you'll see other pre-built non-player homes and features around each zone. And initially, I was a little bit disappointed by this, because I had it in my head. I wanted to live in this built-up area in the town centre, but I soon forgot all about that disappointment as I explored the plots that are available, because fam, this shit is wild, okay? Founders Point, the Alliance Zone, has mountain plots to live out your Heidi fantasies. It has Elwyn Forest type bits. It has your Spoopy Duskwood area, which literally takes up 1/3 of the zone and has plots which are nestled in amongst literal graveyards. You have autumnal farmland areas and windswept craggy coastal parts. The biggest shock I had throughout the entire alpha though was how, after exploring them both, I think I like the Horde Zone, Razorwind Shores, even better. The Ashara-style woodland feels even more like you're in a lush forest. You have plots up on the bluffs for that elevated Tauran vibe, beautiful tropical beaches with coves and caves, and the typical deserty barrens bits too. On top of this, in both, again, you have an amazing amount of environmental storytelling and added flavour. Both zones have obvious wedding spots. The Alliance has a theatre with the curtain physics, and orchards and vineyards and distilleries and bars and public areas with festoon lights on trees and a moonwell with wisps. The Horde area has little private islands and balconies over cliffs that back onto player housing plots. Public baths with exquisite views and all sorts. Both of these zones are just going to be tremendous places to exist, which is the whole point, right? I chose a plot on a mountain in Founders Point. A plot which was taken in the neighborhood I was put in initially, but I wanted it. So I went into my housing tab, I found a neighborhood where that plot wasn't taken, and I bought it for myself for a cool 1,000 gold. Boom. Homeowner. And because it was a completely new neighborhood and this is only alpha, I was the only person in the entire zone for a while, but last time I logged in, it is now completely full, so I wasn't alone for long. As you can see, there's no customization in the outside space yet. I can't even turn the house around to face the direction that I want it to, and my decorating options inside are quite limited too, since I only have the starting items and no way to actually buy any more yet, or at least not ones that work. But I still managed to spend like over over an hour making a cool little apartment in which I made a fake outdoor space that I could see through my windows. And yeah, okay, so I'm gonna need a lot more trees and plants and light sources on that fake outside to make this work properly, but it is definitely something I will be able to do. Then though, I started doing the treasure hunt quests from that ethereal in the town square where I think a lot of the endeavors are gonna happen, exploring the zone even more than I already had done. I got one bit of decor from an underwater cave that I didn't know was there, and I found a cool autumnal orchard by the sea that I swear I had never seen before. If you know me, you know I genuinely have a bit of a weird thing for both the sea and apple trees, I know. So this was the plot I should have chosen and proved the perfect chance to try the plot swapping feature, which was very easy. I just decided I liked this one better. I clicked on the for sale sign, chose the option to move my house here. It didn't cost me anything because I already had one, and that's all it took. My house and everything in it moved here instantly. I also got really excited when I started discovering all the housing vendors everywhere in the old world. There's multiple in Murder Row who don't actually have any stock yet, but also in older cities like Stormwind, where you can buy each piece they offer individually for gold, as long as you have enough rep and gold. Friendly for some items, going right up to exalted for others. You may want to have a look at some of those neglected legacy reps before this feature launches in early access on December the 2nd. That's all I'm saying. And you might want to save up some gold, because this is going to get expensive very quickly. If, like me, you have to buy at least 5 of each item on offer, because, you might need them, and you don't want to be coming back and forth constantly, right? No one needs going back and forth. Crafting for player housing isn't implemented on the alpha yet, but some of the lumber system is. All you have to do is grab your magical lumber axe from a neighborhood vendor, and this makes lumber nodes appear on your minimap. It's not a separate profession, anyone can do it, and in Elwyn Forest, where I tried it out, this took the form of glowing axes sticking out of existing trees that you can just click on and do a little chopping animation to harvest. Lumber is used for all housing crafts apparently, and it seems like there will be no shortage of it. There were loads of nodes everywhere in Elwyn Forest, which does make sense because obviously it's a forest. I am legitimately already looking forward to December the 2nd, when hundreds of people will be out in Elwyn Forest or their favorite other old world zone, merrily chilling out, chopping down trees for hours for big lumber reserves and even bigger fields. Feedback time: there is currently no chopping sound effect for gathering lumber, and when it arrives, Blizz, it has to be good, soft thudding, vaguely echoey, the chill lumberjacking vibes we all want, Blizz, you got this. More feedback actually based on this week's housing play. I really love how alive the housing zones feel, and the way the locals wave and say hello and welcome home. Welcome home, and it made me think, if this is my home, and the idea is that obviously I get to know everyone in my neighborhood, is it a bit weird that so many of these NPCs are just called local? I live here now, I'm not just passing through. Can we give all these NPCs names? I feel kind of rude when they're all like, "Hey Mavamwi, how's things?" And I'm all like, "Oh, great to see you, local." I don't feel that's going to make me very popular in my new home, Housing is brilliant, even in this very limited form. The zones are a triumph. Every new reveal about this feature is going to be an absolute joy as the alpha progresses. I have zero concerns about player housing for Midnight, apart from maybe how limited it's going to feel if the leveling and progression part of this isn't unlocked with early access. That's a tiny concern. Hey, how are you enjoying the video so far? It's kind of long, isn't it? Anyway, it's time to talk about add-ons. We have long known now that Blizzard is gradually working towards implementing way more functionality and customization into their base UI, and that was being done with an overall long-term aim of eventually disabling certain combat information that is the basis of how some of the most popular and widely used add-ons function. Well, this week, Blizzard made clear that their timeline on these plans is basically Oscar Isaac, in that it's considerably shorter than I think anyone expected, and that functionality would be disabled from the very start of Midnight, with no period of add-ons like DBM, bigwigs, details, or weak auras existing alongside the new Blizz UI features as initially planned. To be clear, we're not talking about add-ons in general here, just those that draw from real-time combat data and communication. That information now being kept in what Blizzard calls a secrets box where add-ons just can't see it. This obviously has huge implications on how add-ons work, and the community was rocked this week when the team behind Weak Auras, probably the most significant and impactful combat add-on in the history of WoW, announced that they would not be working on a Midnight version of the add-on as a result of these new limitations, and instead are focusing purely on Classic. This is, any way you cut it, in my opinion, a disaster. Because Weak Auras rock. I love Weak Auras. I love creating them and customizing them, mostly just to make my combat UI look exactly how I want it to. That this most popular of add-ons will no longer be available to players has prompted despair, outrage, and flat-out fear in a huge part of the community. And you have to ask, has Blizz dicked this one? Like, are they way too confident in their own new features to fill the gaps that they are creating by killing these add-ons? Many people assume so, and I also am absolutely, suddenly very nervous because Blizz have left themselves here with zero margin for error, for kind of no reason. Surely it would have been safer to go with the original plan of having the add-ons still functioning while they implemented and tweaked their own versions. You got to admire the confidence, but you know, it's Blizz, you know? I would say that my view on this, the basic terror that I feel, is pretty representative of the community at large, or at least a very large part of the community, with many saying publicly on socials that they won't even bother playing Midnight now, because what's the point without Weak Auras? This entire thing is undoubtedly the hottest topic in WoW right now, and I could double the amount of views on this video if I just called it WoW kills add-ons, what have they done? And had a picture of me on the thumbnail like... But, I mean, you know what I'm going to do now, right? I'm not going to defend Blizzard's decision on this because, like I say, I am also very, very worried about it. But there are a couple of things about this situation that I would like to clarify and clear up. Firstly, the fact that this entire situation isn't still very fluid. Blizzard have already walked back their stance on keeping this information in the metaphorical secret box outside of combat, so potentially anything we are talking about here can change. It is not set in stone. And the other thing is, what are these changes exactly? How do they work? And why are they killing these add-ons? Very basically, real-time combat information is being hidden in that secret box, so add-ons like Weak Auras can't just pull from that information to track things like personal and party and enemy buffs, debuffs, cooldowns, etc. in real time. That of course means that the main purpose of Weak Auras for most players, to track and isolate information that they otherwise couldn't see, is now not possible. However, any information that is displayed on the base UI would still be able to be customized in how it's displayed, and there actually is a whole lot of information that currently isn't visible to players now, but which will be in Midnight because of those UI changes. For an example and proof of this, Bigwigs, absolute heroes for this by the way, recently showcased how they have taken the information displayed on the boss ability timeline and just used it to build that part of Bigwigs again. Because yeah, Bigwigs the add-on can't look in the invisible data to see when the boss abilities are about to happen anymore, but they don't need to because in Midnight that information is being shown on the surface. For me, the most tragic irony in all of this is that even with these changes, Weak Auras would still be legitimately the most useful and impactful add-on in WoW. It would just take some changes and some bending and some things that they can't do anymore and some work which understandably the team there don't feel especially inclined to do. And I don't blame them for that, by the way. And in terms of all of these Blizz UI options, well, they're not all there yet, but the ones that are do show promise. Like I say, the new health bar options aren't everything that I'd like them to be, but they're a very good start. The timeline is good, and as we've seen, enables new add-ons to work off the back of it. The cooldown manager is great now. You can set up very serviceable fake auras, weaker auras, very quickly for any character. And just to reiterate, add-ons are able to take the information displayed there and do stuff with it. You can lock your personal resource bar in place now. Yeah, I'd like to see the resource bar match the visual effects on your actual character resource bar, because they're always really cool. Hopefully that will come. But you know what? I'm certain it's not beyond the scope of add-ons in Midnight to change how that looks for me. And as for whether the game will be playable with this new setup, quite honestly, a lot of that is going to have to do with encounter design as much as anything. And you'd have to imagine that those new raids and dungeons in Midnight are probably being designed specifically with the new UI options in mind, almost to showcase them. Another thing that will affect how successful these UI changes are is literally how classes play and what they need to track exactly. And there's a lot of talk right now about how Blizzard are simplifying classes for Midnight, and that's worth mentioning too, even if I think it's being massively overblown as usual. Look, all I'm saying is, I've been playing this game for over 15 years now. I've been doing this job for almost 10, and I'm sorry, but we have a conversation like this at the beginning of nearly every expansion. Classes feel slower and weaker and simplified, and it's probably because Blizz are planning a console port. People are playing Midnight content with level 80 characters, missing up to 10 talent points, and even the most basic endgame gear, and yeah, your classes feel slower and less powerful. Likewise, every expansion, Blizz comes out with a blue post about healing, where they say some version of, we want to get away from spiky cooldown-based healing profiles and move towards a more consistent, evenly spread style. And lo and behold, like clockwork. And look, I am not saying that classes and healing won't be noticeably different in Midnight. They always are. And you know, Blizz do seem very especially serious about the general, I don't want to say simplification as much as uncomplication of a number of classes this time round. That could definitely have a big effect, for sure. Some will think for better, some will think for worse. I'm just saying that this journey that we're on right now isn't anything new or unique in that sense. But of course, where all of these changes land will also have a big impact on whether Blizzard's UI changes are successful or not. None of this exists in a vacuum, is what I'm saying, and Blizzard's disastrous add-on mass murder will not be a success or failure solely based on how many of those add-ons they manage to replace in the UI. It's going to depend on all of these other things too. Finally on this subject, and actually this in my mind is the most important part of the conversation and the one that I am least qualified to speak on, all of this potentially raises huge accessibility issues as well. Guilds and communities that are sight or hearing impaired rely on add-ons to make the game playable for them. And if these changes mean that they are essentially denied access to raiding or dungeons or anything else, frankly, I just don't consider that personally a sacrifice worth making, no matter what good might come out of it otherwise. Another thing to keep an eye on, obviously, and we'll have plenty of time to, don't worry, because this will be a saga that runs right up until the day Midnight releases, and, you know, probably a bit afterwards as well. My own personal hope is that the WeakAura's team reconsider, or Blizz make some changes that make them reconsider their decision, because I'm going to really miss all the functionality that add-on gives me that will still work with these changes just as much as I do the things that Blizz are breaking for them. Honestly, I could talk about the alpha for another hour at least, but the page count on this script is really starting to terrify me, so I'm going to leave it here for now and instead ask, what do you think about the alpha, the story, the add-on drama, housing, anything we've touched on today, or that we haven't, because we've had to leave a fair bit out? I will say, overall, this alpha has so far done plenty to make me very confident in the quality of Midnight, but we've got a long way to go. I hope you can join us over the coming months for the rest of it. In the meantime, thanks for joining us today. If you like this video, don't thank us, thank our patrons who still give us their actual, real-life money to make all of our work happen. And patrons, honestly, more than ever, thank you. Because without you, there would be a whole lot less Taliesin and Evertel. See you in the T&E patron neighborhoods. They're going to be awesome. If you didn't like it, downvote the shit out of it. Remember, my name is Haughty Chicken. No, my name is Taliesin from me and Evie. Until next time, cheerio.